welcome to the Ski Racing Podcast Extra with me, Dreg Tord Nilsson, ski expert, and I are back to discuss the World Cup finals, which actually this episode could be relatively brief considering we missed half of them. Let's very, very quickly touch on the team event. Norway beat Germany in the big final. That's it.
Yep, that's all. Great. Now we can move on, but just before we move on, yes. Hold your horses. Right, make sure that you subscribe down like here.
Do it. Like
it, share it, send it to your mates. We've had some great feedback from people, amazing comments, and please do comment below, especially about Ed's fashion sense, which we feel always goes down well.
You wait until we get some summer videos on the go and in my Hawaiian shirt.
And topless. Anyway, let's crack on with the women's slalom. Is that what we're
we're going to go men's GS first.
Men's GS. I couldn't even remember the order. Men's giant slalom. It was a really good race. I really enjoyed it, and then the second run turned up, and I was confused. It was twisty. It was turny. People looked like they were passing out as they were getting to the end. Odermatt, I thought, literally needed to chop his legs off. It was so hard.
Yeah, it was really tricky. Obviously, we missed all of the speed races, which...
You're really upset about.
Yeah, it really robbed us. I feel like FIS, I don't know, robbed us of something that was supposed to be really good and left us a bit, I don't know, a bit dry.
You feel a bit empty inside, don't you?
Yeah. Well, skiing's over for the winter. No, but I mean, in all seriousness, we were robbed of what should have been an amazing crescendo with, Odermatt potentially picking up big points in the speed events. Likewise with Lara Gut-Behrami picking up big speed events, big points, and we didn't get it. So we were, left on a bit of a sour note. But it was an incredibly difficult piece. You could see how technical it was. Odermatt, you're right, looked absolutely out on his feet.
He looked
knackered. I think, do you know what I found quite difficult to sort of get my head around? If you rewind to Kranjska where Odermatt looked like he couldn't do anything wrong, that he could keep skiing for the next 6 weeks, and Pinturault looked like he was obviously under a huge amount of pressure, but then he was. Looked like he was tired in his legs. He looked very cautious, obviously very stiff, just through nerves, I think. And then we got to finals, and it was gone the other way. We talked about it in the last video, if you remember. We talked about the hunter becoming hunted, and it switched around. And all of a sudden, Odermatt didn't have that fluidity that had brought him so much good performances, and he found himself down 11th.
And what you're trying to say is that they're obviously watching our channel and getting the pressure on. Yeah. So we are changing the ski racing world.
We are changing the world of ski racing.
Now, explain. It was a Norwegian coach that set the second run.
Yeah.
Explain to me what their thinking was and who that was meant to benefit.
Kristoffersen talked about it quite openly in Adelboden about how the course sets had been very, very straight and how he wasn't a big fan. Then him and Mauricio got into a bit of a social, classic, don't do it on here, social media punch up in the comments and stuff about how Mauricio thought that, if you don't like it, don't do it, faster races are fine, it's all within the rules and all this sort of stuff. But basically, he just took it to the nth degree. It brings something else. It's good that we get some really straight ones and some really turny ones. We are looking for the best all-rounder after all.
We are indeed. Right, let's chat the podium.
Yeah.
Matteo Feller coming in, 0.21.
Yeah.
Because it was really tight, the podium we should have. It was really tight, wasn't it? He skied a really good race.
Yes. We thought that it would be quite an interesting sort of almost like a rear gunner scenario with Feller trying to look after Pinturault. I mean, not that you can really do it because you haven't got enough time to do it, but it was going to be an important sort of role in picking up points. And if Odermatt had been skiing quickly, Feller would have had to have beaten him as well if Pinturault had won to take the title. Lots of different connotations, and we thought him and maybe Maillard for Odermatt might play sort of that sort of rear gunner role.
I think maybe to a certain degree, at the back of their minds, they probably are thinking that as well.
But it was so tight. Feller skied really well. It's finishing the season on a high.
Yeah, and it really puts that team effort from a country perspective. Zucek, I think, who came second, by the way, I think he skied a really, really good race, just knocking 100th quicker.
Yeah, sneaking favourite by a honey.
Sneaky as ever. He skied well though,
Yeah,
really well.
He's got such a great style. That sort of explosive, dynamic style fared him really, really well down that course. The snow conditions weren't great with all that fresh snow. Just meant underfoot it was. They tried to water it, and then they tried to freeze it, and then they got fresh snow on there. So lots of different conditions. And then when you're as powerful as Zubcic is, it means that you have to be able to be adaptable, and he skied really well, as he has done all season.
Totally. And then in first place, the birthday boy himself. It was his 30th birthday.
Cracking present, wasn't it?
He finally got it. I mean, last year, as I'm sure everyone remembers, he missed out because of COVID. So he kind of he couldn't take the title, and he couldn't.
Because he was probably favourite before going in. I mean, it was obviously second to Kilda, but he was probably favourite going in, wasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And so he really deserves it, doesn't he?
Yeah. He dealt with the pressure really well. You could see it. We talk about it in the analysis actually, when you could see those opening turns in that really steep pitch. He wasn't overly cautious, but he was really making sure of good technical skiing. He was making sure that he had great separation because it was very steep. He was taking any risks in that, and he was sort of skied as you get used to him skiing, technically very astute.
Yeah.
And he did actually look unstoppable.
He did, but
dealt with the pressure really well. But my heart rate was up.
And in the gate he did look petrified.
Yeah, but he took both globes overall, as well as the title. I think he would have happily not taken the GS title as long as he picked up the globe. But all in all, an absolute belter of a GS.
And a belter of a birthday for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, let's check it out and see how he did it.
Alexis Pinturault. Lots of pressure on his shoulders on this day. But, it takes a while to settle in. It's so steep, so icy. He just goes back to being super, super disciplined with that body, keeping the shoulders moving forward, making sure the separation this man gets on these steep sections, on this run, is insane, because you can see just making sure of everything. That position, all of that power, core strength that takes to deal with that arc as it comes across, gets massive acceleration, drifts through the top and then separates, and the ski bites. Just working hard, the hips, the skis are getting away from him, but he's working to get that shoulders moving forward and into the next turn. Another little line adjustment to make sure that he's solid over the outside ski. And just sort of, spends 4/10 making sure that he's in a solid position when he comes to the steep. And again, solid skiing. He's been under so much stress, so much pressure over this day, as well as all the days preceding, with Odermatt sort of letting him off the hook a little bit in this giant slalom. Nice and smooth through there. Gets good purchase early in the turn, which is so key. But Pinturault, when he's on fire like he was this day, just doesn't... He looks immovable, doesn't he? Look at that turn. Nice and smooth. Gets good early pressure, and just... Those skis were just so on such an arc on rails, so smooth. Some of these ruts and bumps we caught out a few of these ruts, caught out some of the races early on, so course reports were all important today through these certainly through this next final steep pitch down here, because there are a couple of them, as we see just a bit further down, that caught out some of the races. But important reports from Thibaut Favreau as well as Fevre, just letting him know to keep that concentration all the way to the end. Again, you can see it, working so hard, gets weight towards the heels, shoulders and arms move up and forward, gets right onto the front of the ski again, and he's back online. Slight outside ski wobble, slightly inside. This was a heart-in-the-mouth moment, because these were the turns where the ruts just started to play a part. Doesn't have that separation. Look, we talked about it early on, how he made so sure of those steep turns, but there isn't much separation here. It's pretty much a straight line out to that outside ski. Just means that there isn't the bite, there isn't the grip on that outside ski. So then when we roll this through, outside ski just moves away. Luckily he's got good core strength, and as well as great purchase on that inside ski, just to get him out of jail there, really. and then back on it. This had another little rut through here, just got in it early, solid open. You can see the adjustment. Look at this, really over that outside ski. You can see it right there, stepping on that outside foot to make sure he made it through that without any issues. And a great day that it turned out to be for Pinturault.
Okay, we move on to the women's slalom, which happened on Saturday. Another cracking race, with titles being secured as well by Vlhova, who did finish only in 6th, but she did enough to secure the overall title, didn't she?
Yeah, she. You could see the emotion in the finish. If you can't find it, go back onto the Eurosport app, and if you haven't got that, make sure you get it, because then you can watch it all back. And you could just see that emotion flooding out of her. She was very open from the get-go about what the season goals were. My opinion, she went about it the wrong way, trying to ski too much, and I think it almost backfired on her, and potentially could have done if we'd seen a few more speed races.
Yeah.
But she won.
Yeah.
And deservedly so, because she did deserve it. She was winning for large portions of it. Yeah, 6th place was enough to take the overall globe. She was a good day for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she missed out on the title because she was leading the slalom standings going into the slalom day.
Yeah, so there was obviously it was a 3-horse race, basically. Yeah. Liensberger, Shiffrin and Vlhova, which was really exciting. And as we said, I think, in the last video, it's great that we get this excitement. It's the last race, and it is, it comes down to seconds, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, Liensberger ended up taking the title.
Yes.
But the podium she blasted it. I mean, if you look at the times, Gissin came 3rd, 1.95 behind. Yeah. Then you got Shiffrin 1.24 behind.
Yes.
And Liensberger's literally in a different stratosphere.
Yeah, but she did that as well in Åre.
She did do it in Åre.
So she her slalom skiing has been mental. It's been so good. Missed the podium one race out of, I don't know, 8, 9 slaloms, how many the women had. Yeah. But which is an incredible record. And then to do it in such style as well. We talk about it in the analysis video. She's so loose and so relaxed, and she makes a lot of very small errors, but she reacts to them so quickly. I don't think you really see sort of a perfect error-free run from her, but she's always really loose, and any small mistakes she does make, she sort of allows them to flow into the next turn without chucking on the brakes or without it ending up with a major mistake that costs her a huge amount of time. Although, to be fair, she probably could have made a huge mistake and still...
She could have made a cup of tea halfway through.
Time out, having a schnitzel.
I mean, it's really interesting what you said about keeping relaxed. It is something that all skiers should be, recreational, professional racers, whatever. It does mean that when stuff hits the fan, you can react, and it shows that...
Yeah, and she didn't have any pressure on her shoulders coming into the season. Slalom title, Vlhova, Shiffrin, who's it going to be?
Yep.
Who's all the pressure on? Those two. Wendy Holdner takes a bit of that pressure, but probably more for the fact that she's still battling for that elusive top step. But Liensberger kind of just went about her business. You had a bit of pressure on the fact that she'd been on the podium lows before picking up her first win. And then World Champs happened and just really took it in her stride, didn't even sort of look back.
No, incredible skiing. So let's check it out in the analysis.
Liensberger takes another win in emphatic style. Such good skiing, so loose and dynamic, isn't it? She just lets it go. She sort of skis what's in front of her, doesn't really over ski the steep section. Again, nice, good, solid outside ski position. Such a great camera angle there, but gets into this hairpin nice and quickly so that she can get that exit dialed, get solid over that outside ski. But it's just the fluidity that she skis with. Doesn't really get into... she skis quite loose and quite well, but it doesn't sort of go into huge mistakes. It just sort of... She reacts really quickly to making the errors. So here, just slightly overextending reach for that inside, for the cross block, which you can see here with the split of the skis, just puts a bit more pressure onto that inside ski. And obviously after you've skied, we're not top 30 because there weren't 30 starters, but with having a few 20 odd starters in front of her, there is a bit of a groove there with this softer snow. So you can see that she's up on that shelf that's by the gate on that inside foot, and therefore loses a bit of pressure on that outside ski. You can see that hip dropping back, but then the minute she gets it starts to happen with that inside foot. She just pushes back onto that outside ski. A low transition, but gets over as quickly as she possibly can to get onto that outside ski early, because, again, there is this fall away here. You can see that everything's dragging you this way, and so that these right-footed turns are even more important to make sure that purchase is there, which is why you can get away with being slightly inside like she did when it's a bank turn on those left-footers. So, but she just every single split, she just seems to get quicker and quicker. Yeah, she lost a couple of tenths, but broadly speaking, she's just relentless, top to bottom, nice and solid, good separation, skiing the rut line, really important on a day where the snow isn't as hard as it could be underfoot. Gets round into it early, isn't dropping into any holes, quick feet through all the combinations. And another one, she's slightly into the back seats, just the outside ski gets away with her, but it's just reactionary, it's just instinctive, the way that she's able to get back onto the fronts and get a move over the outside foot. Small rut that she didn't quite read that as well, as you can see, just getting pitched over the fronts. But she was just able to ride it out. And all of those mistakes that she makes, she never seems to allow that to turn into or develop sort of 2 or 3 gates. The mistakes are made and she makes that recovery really quickly, instantly almost. And the speed that she can carry through these final few turns was super impressive.
We now look at the men's slalom, which finished only an hour or so ago. It was the final race. It was the 100 metres of the equivalent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was a really, really good race. It was the final race for Jean-Baptiste Grange.
I know.
What have you got to say about that?
I'm really sad, actually.
Yeah. He's a bit of a legend.
Yeah, I grew up, actually not grew up watching him. I spent my racing career watching him. Just a professional titles coming out of his proverbial, and he's just a legend, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just a legend. I think the writing was on the wall when Lizaroux hung up his boots earlier on the season, but then JB Grange making World Cup finals, and then still hanging up the boots. I guess what he's looking at is Olympic season next season, and maybe the French Federation is a total assumption, but maybe the French Federation have said, do you know what, we're going to take Clement Noel, obviously, but then the younger guns we're going to look at, and we're probably not going to take you unless you're beating them by a considerable margin. And then that's the case. You think, is there any point?
Yeah.
He's won everything. What's he doing it for? If he's not going to get to go to the biggest stage of ski racing, then what's the point?
Perhaps, and again, assumption, he has a role where he can actually feed in from a coaching side of things or a management side of things for the French Federation and help those guys.
Yeah, well, they do talk about Clement Noel, how he grew up watching him because he's like 15 years his junior or something stupid. So Clement Noel's talks about how much of a big part JB Grange plays in his development and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, he'll be sorely missed, I think.
He will indeed. The race ended with Manuel Feller taking
crazy
the
man.
win.
He's back. Ben Clark is going to be very happy.
I'm very happy. I love it. I love him. Definitely man crush.
He's quite a cool dude.
Pinturault and Clement Noel finishing up the podium. And
just on Pinturault, ninth to third.
Yeah, I was just about to come on to that.
Yes, I beat it.
Unbelievable. Shock.
But look what he's asked with zero pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure. Like, he doesn't obviously carry a huge amount of pressure in anything like what he does in GS, but he's obviously still a top 7 skier most of the season. And so podiums are by no stretch of the imagination they're certainly a target, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So free to ski, free to charge, didn't matter if he came out, and he blitzed it. Yeah, ninth to third, 11 honeys off. Pretty impressive.
Very, very impressive. Clement Noel being very consistent. Second after the first run, second after the second run.
Yeah.
It's what you need, isn't it, to move into next season?
Yeah, well, you looked at last season when he came so close to the title, and then he talked about it midway through this year, saying, I haven't been consistent enough because he's been leading DNF, he's made some big mistakes and thrown away opportunities to take more points. And I think you'd probably say he's the quickest slalom skier in the World Cup. I don't think that's unfair to say to the other guys, but he's certainly not the most consistent. Marco Schwarz is there or thereabouts with Clement Noel, but it's miles more consistent, and that's what cost Noel, and that's what gifted Schwarz. And
maybe next season we look at and see maybe it's Noel's year.
Well,
but he does need to sort his consistency.
But and he has done that for the last part of the season. But also he's what is he, 20 something, 20, low 20s? What is he, 22, something like that? You can tell us on the comments below. But he's young. He's young, so you can't have it all. No. Not everybody's going to be a Shiffrin.
No, exactly.
Have it all that young.
Exactly. Anyway, let's have a look how the crazy man Feller did it.
Here's Manuel Feller's winning run. Tough conditions, as we've seen, but solid skiing from Austrian number 2. Loads of power, loads of early pressure. You could see it's really easy to sort of see what he's up to, isn't it? You can see exactly how hard he's working with that upper body to try and keep the weight on the front of the skis. It gets a bit twisted coming out of this hairpin on the steep, but he just bangs in the outside ski pressure, allows the weight to still come through on the front. A bit countered, but again, just sort of rides out that pressure. And then lovely solid position. You can see that upper body, how hard he works to keep that weight and chest forward. I mean, such a dynamic position. What a great camera angle we've got as he comes around there with that huge separation. So much pressure to deal with at the end of the turn, which is what the upper body carriage is trying to do, is trying to keep the weight further forward. You can just see feet get away from him slightly, starts the turn a little bit towards the heels, but works so hard with that core strength to allow the feet to come through and get back on top of them. A really aggressive second run, manages to keep it error free on that top section. Slight loss of the outside ski on that fall away turn, but again just keeps the upper body heading down the hill, so close to straddling that gate. Just keep an eye on the tips here. That is probably as close as you get, but who cares? All worked out for well in the end. So nice to see him back on the podium. Second World Cup win. That is a stat I have checked. And then solid skiing through this flat section. Again, this was an opportunity to make a few mistakes down here, but Feller has calmed it down over the years. Nice and solid. Just keeps those hips moving through. You can see, hips get low. We talked about this a few times already this season, but hips get low in the transition, but by the time he's up starting again, you can see, it's a difficult angle to see really, but he's got the hips come back through at the end of the transition, but then by the time he's rolled up onto that new outside ski, the hip is in a very tall forward position, just allowing that real early bite to the turn to get that grip done nice and early. Again, sort of similar. That low hip in the transition, but moves the feet out towards the side to give himself a long hip to be able to be over the front of those tips of the skis. So it's an interesting style that he gets that really does work for him. Look at that, another tip of the gate. Watch, keep an eye on that blue gate that he's going around there now. Just watch how that inside ski picks up. Whoa, he was right on the edge, wasn't he? That's as close as it gets. Take it back. And really solid on the exit. It's so interesting how he didn't really let that affect him, because that's a heart in the mouth moment. Real heart. He'll know exactly that. He'll feel that and realise that was very, very close. Some solid, dynamic, aggressive, risk-taking skiing, feet working underneath him. It was a very impressive run in tricky conditions.
Let's move on to the final race that we're going to be covering this season.
Oh.
I know, it's sad. It's the giant slalom for the women, and
tissue.
I'm not going to say anything. It was a very interesting race, and we're going to talk about the most interesting thing, which is why the hell Gut-Behrami did 3 gates, and then it looked like she just couldn't be asked, basically. It's YouTube, we can say anything we want.
Yeah, I mean, have done a little bit of research, so if you watch it back, she does 3 gates and stops.
But properly, not injured, no
mistake. She just went 3 turns and thank you very much. I'm off.
Yeah.
Some of it, sort of starting to come out of the woodworks. Head wrote on their social media that it's something to do with a protest against the fact that they've lost so many speed races this season. Well, certainly a finals, and then they've lost a couple in the week.
And she basically is thinking
and she's on the speed side. Yeah, well, I mean, she's got a point, really. Yeah. I mean, you look at it from the men's side and the women's side, and we'll talk about this more on the podcast. So if you want to delve into this a bit deeper, we'll be talking about this at length on the podcast. So go over and check it out. But I think it's unfair. I really do. And I know I come from a speed, as a speed athlete.
I mean, you've basically protested all season anyway.
Yeah, I always have. But yeah, they run more tech races than they do speed races. So,
but the argument is, isn't it easier to run the tech?
Yeah, well, yes, because you could run it anywhere because they just do a few turns.
And they don't need as much space.
Yeah.
So...
Yes, but I don't see why there's not some sort of percentage of point, versus
totally
finishes versus points, so that at least you get, you don't necessarily get 100 points for a win in tech and 100 points for a win in speed. But if you're running, the same amount, then of course a win is worth the same amount of points. But if you're not running the same amount of races, then surely there needs to be some sort of allowance, I think. I mean, otherwise it's not really. Gut-Behrami's as a speed skier, Super G downhill and GS. Like, she's got less opportunities to score points. Mm-hmm. It's not a case of not performing as well. She just doesn't have the chance. Yeah, because she doesn't ski slalom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, comment below what you guys think.
Yeah,
do you think that Gut-Behrami did the right thing? Do you think she's right in
bold
protesting?
To do it. Swiss lady in Switzerland against FIS, a Swiss company. She's taken home, again, don't shoot me down, more prize money than anybody this season.
Yeah.
So, careful that you don't comment people that paying your bills.
Yeah, exactly. We're really good at that. But comment below what you guys think. Is Ed right or wrong? He's definitely wrong.
He's always right. You should know that by now.
But yeah, it'll be really interesting to know what fans of ski racing think.
But anyway, podium.
So we had Ameta Hrovat.
No,
Hrovat.
Yes.
See, I struggled with that last time.
We struggled with a lot of names apart from Swedish ones.
Anyway, she
did really well, didn't she?
She did do really well.
It's nice to see. Sorry, carry on, Torge. Go.
No, it was nice to see, and she was only 0.48 behind.
Yeah, half a second off. It's really good, wasn't it? And another name on the podium, pushing, half a second off, was very impressive. She's done some good skiing so far this season. Again, not had the consistency, another sporting cliche, but performed right to the end of the season, and that is probably, apart from the very start of the season, the most important time to ski well, because the summer months are really hard. Yeah. Because that's when you make all your changes, your crazy early mornings, loads of travelling, loads of you're doing. I'm going to say 15 runs a day, which may not sound very many, but when you're racing, skiing on injected race piece or on the glaciers or whatever, or down in New Zealand, that's. Or in the high altitude of Chile, that's a lot of runs. And so the summers are really difficult, hard yards, lots of gym stuff. So finishing the season well just sends you into the
and also being from a slightly smaller nation financially, that is a massive kick. Yeah. That's really good to set them up for next season. Yeah. Money's always really difficult unless you are the Austrians or the Swiss or the French. Money's always good to get, and a podium. I don't know what they're paying out, but $5 grand.
I hope it's more than $5 grand.
20 grand.
But it just means that they'll be, the Slovenian Ski Federation, Slow Ski, they'll be happy. They'll be able to take that to sponsors, and Hrovat being young and all of us, another podium for her is going to set them up nicely.
Yeah. Second, we had Shiffrin, who led from run one. She ended up 0.28 behind. So looking like you want to say something.
I feel like Shiffrin's going to be pleased to see the back of this season. She, don't get me wrong, she skied incredibly well at times. She's had difficulties at times, a few where she struggled maybe with the pressure of skiing well. So I think she'll be pleased to get it done. She skied well. She could, what did she take in the GS standings? Was it second or third in the standings? So all in all, she's had a good season, but her standards are so high, and people's expectations of Shiffrin are, I think, deservedly high as well.
I mean, she's
phenomenal.
god.
She's phenomenal. She's a phenomenal athlete. So I think
she'll be back.
100%.
And she'll be back
100%. But I feel like she's looking to get rid of the season now.
Yeah, which is fair enough. That's how we think of 2020 in general. So
We're out.
I can totally appreciate that. Alice Robinson, back on the podium, back winning. Mm-hmm. She had a monster second run.
Beautiful second run.
Yeah.
So good. Fourth to first, real charging second run. Lots of power left in those legs come the end of the season. She faltered certainly at the start. Started very, good bid numbers earlier in the season. Started
really
sort of dropping
away.
back. All of a sudden, you don't talk about her for podiums. You're not talking about her for wins certainly, and then comes back like that. And you're like, that is the Alice Robinson we've been waiting to see, and she did it in some style as well.
Yeah, and fingers crossed she can then bring that for next season. Anyway, let's have a look how Alice Robinson did it.
Yeah, against Shiffrin.
There we go.
Okay, here's the side-by-side. Alice Robinson on the left, Mikaela Shiffrin on the right, just to see if we can work out where Alice made up that difference with her monster charge in that second run. Straight out of the gate onto one of the steepest pitches in World Cup. You can see how difficult it is for both of them to find grip. Alice Robinson slightly further forward with that pressure over the outside ski, whereas Shiffrin's outside legs just bouncing a little bit more crazy. But both get decent purchase towards the end of the turn, but a lot of skipping to get over to the top of it. Alice so inside. Look at Robinson, no separation there. Risky tactic on the steep. Shiffrin, tiny bit more, but both of them working so hard to try and get that ski to bite. Shiffrin getting bounced through some of those cross ruts. But Robinson already just slightly more tiger line coming in there, but just chucks the skis across tiny bit earlier. But it's nip and tuck at the top of the steep. But Robinson just taking a few more risks. You can see that entry from Robinson, a bit cleaner. Shiffrin, a bit more sideways, just controlling the speed, working to try and stay higher in the line. Similar again, both of them looking to try and stay in an ideal position. But as they come through the splits, you've got Alice Robinson now taking out half a gate's advantage. Still about half a gate, but Robinson now just a little bit cleaner through the turns. Shiffrin gets caught out by that rutted. You can just see there's a cross rut going through there. Just loses purchase on the outside. That just drifts her low. Isn't able to bring that momentum that she built early in the turn into the next ones. Both ladies going very direct into this. Robinson, direct line, drifts over the top and then punch. Shiffrin likewise drifts over the top and then goes to the punch. Working them so hard down here. Look at great position by Robinson. Look at that separation through there. Classic. Oh, if I could draw properly. Yeah, beautiful separation on that outside ski. Upper body nice and level. Across the top of the shoulders. Uses that, you can see the speed that she's brought out of there, moves the body weight through. Shiffrin likewise comes around there nice and clean. Just finishes the turn off a little bit more. Robinson runs a bit straighter. You can see the start of that turn directs this sort of towards the camera a bit more, whereas you can see Shiffrin just finishes off that turn a bit more across the hill. She's trying to set up a little bit higher and take a slightly more conservative line through here. But Robinson just making a couple of hundred sort of every turn, and that's where she starts to build and build and build every turn. That confidence after some good results the last couple of races. Shiffrin's those second runs, the pressure's still seemingly getting to the, well, I was about to say the greatest of all time, but certainly one of them. Such a tough hill, works him right till the end. You see Robinson coming around here, loses that outside ski, but still doesn't chuck them sideways, keeps the momentum. Looks like Shiffrin's 2/3 of a gate behind now. Almost at a gate, we see he's going to struggle to be clear in terms of the side-by-sides, but Robinson just moving away now, nice and fluid, nice and clean through the ruts and bumps. Both ladies dealing well with the cross ruts. See Robinson just cuts a very direct duck of the head inside as she takes that right across the top of the shoulder that just twists her out. But again, watch the outside ski when she goes through this mistake, which is basically she just come to the ski over the brow of this hill slightly too early with the pressure, and then ends up sort of chopping the top of the turn off and going very direct into there. And this blue gate just hooks her up, but watch the outside ski, clean on that carve still, and then dives onto the next turn. Where Shiffrin comes around there nice, and it looks like Shiffrin's caught up, maybe only at half a gate at the moment, so Shiffrin did some good work through that flat, but then Robinson puts that mistake to the back of her mind, and it's getting towards a gate all of a sudden. But Robinson so clean and smooth, Shiffrin unable to keep up with the Kiwi, and that is the win for Alice Robinson.
Okay, that's everything. That's done. We're done for the season.
Thank God I don't have to see you as much anymore.
That's what he thinks. Anyway, thank you so much for watching all of our episodes. Thank you very much to our sponsors, Powder Hound. Thank you to Ski Bartlett when we could record there. And of course, thank you to Eurosport and the Eurosport Player. Download it if you haven't got it. It's a great way of watching all the ski racing and other sports on the go. Ed, we're not heading anywhere, but what have we got planned?
Make sure you subscribe, because we're going to be putting out some content. We're going to be looking back at the season. We're talking highs and lows, as well as hopefully, if we can, getting in and seeing some athletes and getting to talk to some people face to face, and even some summer tech videos as well. So make sure you subscribe so you know when those are coming out. But then, that's it.
That's it.
Until next time. Bye for now.